I'm Debbie.
And I'm Alison.
And we're the Poltergals. Spooky. Hi, I'm Debbie.
And I'm Alison.
And we're the
Poltergals.
So this weekend we did our live show. Excuse me. And during our intro...
I'm leaving that in. I hope you know.
Great. During our intro, Alison did not say we're the Poltergals. I was like, we did the whole thing. She was like, hi, I'm Alison. I was like, hi, I'm Debbie. And then I was like, and we're? And then she didn't say it.
I mean,
why didn't you say it?
It made them laugh, didn't it?
I mean,
okay,
yes.
Well, there you go.
But
now you know my reasoning.
Yeah, but Boobays did their little opening, and it was fine. But you messed up ours.
But did it get any laughs?
It did get some. I mean, I don't know.
They got some smiles.
We got some smiles,
but not any laughs.
Okay, well, what are we doing today, Alison?
So we're doing the LaLaurie house, or mansion, whatever you want to call it.
Yes,
in New Orleans.
New Orleans, and then I'm actually going to post some videos and some photos from New Orleans.
So this, of course, is one of our true crime editions.
Burn, burn, burn.
So,
and if you know anything about the LaLaurie house, you literally know what we're about to talk about.
Do we?
I mean, maybe they've never heard of this. If you've never heard of this, raise your hand.
I've never heard of this.
A person on a podcast just made you raise your hand. And we can't even see you, so you look like an idiot.
You can see us.
You can see us, but we can't see you.
Some of you may not be able to see us, but you can hear us.
Yeah, if you're a podcast listener, boom, shakalaka.
But
if you're a YouTube watcher, even better.
The problem is, on both scenarios,
we can't
see them.
So if you raised your hand, that sounds like a you problem.
We're gonna have to do a honor system here. So yeah.
Sound off in the comments if you raised your hand.
Anyways, I like how that's how we're just like we try to get back on track.
I know.
Anyways. That's so bad.
Let's get started, Alison.
So this was a custom house in New Orleans, which enslaved blacks were kept in attached quarters.
Wow, we're already off to a terrible start.
So I'm kind of, again, starting off right in the middle, and then we'll kind of backtrack.
It's like the freeze frame. What happened?
Yeah.
Rewind.
As Corey does.
Yeah, that's the noise that I make. When Star rewind.
So it is said that the slaves at this house were kept in horrid conditions.
Horrid.
Even by standards of the slave treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And usually were half-starved. Despite their treatment, LaLaurie was known to the public to be polite to blacks.
Wow. And
court records show her that she would even have two slaves with her.
Wow.
Regardless, a rumor spread the family's mistreatment of their slaves, prompting an official investigation in 1832. So after that, stories of mistreatment persisted, including accounts that were shared with Harriet, the prominent 19th century English writer who visited the city in 1833.
Wow.
It is said that LaLaurie has become enraged when a 12-year-old slave girl named Leah accidentally hit a snag while combing through her hair. LaLaurie then chased this girl around the room with a whip until the child leaped off the balcony to her death.
And this is where the story picks up.
Yes. Leah was buried behind the mansion grounds, and LaLaurie was found guilty of cruelty, abusing her slaves, and forced to forfeit the remaining 9 slaves. But then the slaves were taken away and scheduled to be sold at a public auction.
I know this part.
But LaLaurie persuaded a relative to purchase the enslaved workers and return them right back to the mansion.
Ugh, that's so terrible.
Yes. So, on April 10th of 1834, a fire broke out in the kitchen of the mansion. When the police and fire marshals arrived, they found a 72 or 70-year-old woman, who was the family cook. She was chained up to the stove.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yes. She later confessed that she initially had set the fire as a suicide attempt because she feared that LaLaurie intended to take her to the torture room as punishment. She also claimed that anyone taken upstairs to the room never came back.
Dun, dun, dun.
This account, reported in the local press, led bystanders the next day to demand that the torture room be inspected. When LaLaurie's denied them entrance, they broke down the doors and found 7 mutilated slave bodies.
Ugh.
Some were hung, others were stretched at their limbs, and still others were missing body parts. There is only one surviving old slave woman who had a wound on her head that left her too weak to walk.
I know. During this, I think I had read somewhere that there was like a table and someone was like, had their entrails were like taken out.
Yes.
And all like around their body.
It is insane. And talk about like insanity. Like this lady literally abused her power of having slaves and just killing for her own satisfaction.
Disgusting.
Just like any killer, but...
And also don't own humans. That's disgusting.
Like, one, she owned the slaves. Found a way to
get them back,
get
even
them
after
back.
being found guilty of
of
cruelty.
mistreating them. And then continue to mistreat them. And it was like, oh, it's fine.
Disgusted.
Yeah.
Honestly, a terrible, terrible person, and I hope she burns in hell forever.
It's horrible. I really hope that that's where she is. But
yeah.
So when the discovery of the torture room became widely known, a mob attacked the mansion. The surviving slaves were rescued and brought to a local jail for a macabre public viewing by more than 4,000 New Orleans residents.
Disgusting. Also disgusting.
Yes.
People, disgusting.
It was...
all I can say.
Humanity is just
what is wrong with us?
Yes. Investigators later found several bodies, including one child, buried throughout the mansion's grounds.
So sad.
LaLaurie and her family escaped the mansion just before the mob took control of it. What they did for the next 15 years is not quite clear, but it is known that LaLaurie died in Paris, France on December 7th of 1849. The mansion of LaLaurie lived is now a landmark of the French Quarter in the New Orleans.
Yep, we went right by there.
Yes. I say yes, but y'all went.
We did.
Which...
Sorry, I went without Allison.
I kind of don't have a reason not to go to Louisiana.
Let's go.
My brother lives there now.
Oh, wow. We can go stay with your brother.
Yeah. So, he is the strengths coach for the women's basketball team for LSU.
When we went, oh, wow. But yeah.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, bro.
Shout out, brother. But yeah, so when we went, unfortunately, the LaLaurie, where she was buried or supposedly buried, was actually closed off. So the cemetery, because they had like severe flooding or something. So they were like, sorry, you can't go in there. But that's the one where she's supposed to be at. But
that sucks.
It kind of sucked.
I hope her body was washed away.
Hey, angry noises. But yeah, so that kind of sucked. We didn't get to like see her grave. But also, why would we want to? Exactly. 'Cause she's a terrible person.
Yeah. No. Terrible people do terrible things that don't deserve
anything.
No. Definitely not the fame.
Yes.
So at 1140 Royal Street stands what has become the legendary mansion, where many of New Orleans' most phantasmic poltergeist resides. Ooh. But yet, some of the questions that are asked are, what do we know about the mysterious mansion and why it is haunted? It is, of course, named from the LaLaurie, which she is Delphine LaLaurie. And she was, her last name was McCarty. The gentle and sweet daughter of a well-to-do family, grew up to be a woman who would later be, of course, the cruel mistress of the haunted house. 2 of her husbands died of strange causes. Yet it was her third marriage that sparked genuine suspicion. LaLaurie's turbulent third marriage was said to have driven her to madness in the mansion. Yes. Ooh. Which is where she inhabited with her young and handsome husband. Reports circulated of abuse, which Madame LaLaurie inflicted upon her slaves and even her own daughters.
Ugh, terrible.
So the story begins in 1831. Of course, Edward Dufessat.
These are all like French names.
Yes.
So.
Sold his unfinished home, which would have been to the LaLauries, and the couple completed the mansion of the agriculture, of course, with the French
architectural style, as it was, what most of them were.
Yes. And it is said that life inside here was nothing short of hellish. And this is where the abuse started to come in with the enslaves. And though she was kind to enslaved people to public, it had even freed two of them. She made life in the mansion a living nightmare.
It was all an act.
Yes. So, of course, the fire is what brought up the secret chamber in the spring of 1834. It revealed horrific conditions for the slaves living there, who were being tortured, starved, and beaten. The fire was, of course, ignited by the slave that was
chained to the
chained
cook.
to the that was an attempt to kill herself. And of course, the LaLaurie family left, and New Orleans press seized the opportunity to vilify and demonize
Madame Delphine.
Yes. It is believed that most of the spirits which haunt the house are those of the deceased slaves.
Sad.
She restrained them, mutilated them, and subject them to sick experiments. And by the time the fire exposed the horrors at the house, there is an unknown number of those that have died by her hand.
I think I heard something about I want to say 17, but I would literally just be making that up. But I think whenever we were there, I think they had said there were, or maybe that was how many bodies they found on the property. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I was like, ooh,
it's scary.
And then of course all the mutilated bodies and just upstairs or there weren't even buried or anything.
Yeah. The volunteers, when they arrived, they encountered the black cook chained, and then this is when she confessed to setting fire. The first responders found a group of imprisoned enslaved people. Many of them, of course, tortured with broken bones, their eyes gouged out, and sometimes some of them with even worse conditions. 7 slaves, more or less, were horribly mutilated and were suspended by their neck with their limbs apparently stretched out and torn from one extremity to another. They had been confined by her for several months and even merely kept in existence to prolong their suffering.
Yeah, she didn't feed them or give them water or anything. She would just leave them in the cages.
Yikes. It's 2 o'clock. It's actually 3, so it's definitely 2 centuries of paranormal activity. After the fire, the house was converted into an apartment complex, and a tenant was murdered shortly after. However, the unusual nature of his death suggests ties to the paranormal activity. And the LaLaurie Mansion functioned as an all-girls school where students often experienced bizarre and random physical assaults.
Have you seen American Horror Story, Coven?
No, I don't watch any of that.
Ooh,
but one of the seasons is based off of
this.
I'm
pretty sure that's Coven. That's that season, if I'm right.
I wouldn't know.
It's rough. Very rough.
Anyways, so we're going to take a commercial break here really fast.
Bye.
See you later. And now, a word from our sponsors.
Spooky. Today's episode is brought to you by Skellington Curiosities, because they brought me a donut and me and Allison coffee.
Yum.
Thanks,
Be
guys.
sure to go check out Skellington Curiosities at Bosque, and then also
Their new Casket and Cauldron location right on Washington Avenue. You can get coffee, which is Bones Coffee, which they have different flavors every day. And then at their location on Bosque Square, you can find out more and get some oddities, shop some cool stuff. Free promo. They did not pay us to say these things. They just bribed me with donuts and coffee. So, I mean, I guess that is a sponsorship, right?
I mean, that's all it takes, people. Just bring us some food and bring us some drinks, and you yourself can get yourself a sponsorship.
A commercial.
Here.
Yeah. Get your own commercial on the Poltergals. But yeah, shout out Sean and Kylie. We'll have to have them on as official Polter Pals soon.
Yes.
All
That'll
right.
be so fun.
Back to other commercials.
What other commercials?
I don't know.
We are the only commercial.
Oh, well.
And now, back to the show.
Spooky. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for coming back to the episode. Are you guys ready to get into the hauntings?
Okay. So, oh no, let's not go all the way back up to the history.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, for almost 200 years, there have been reports of paranormal activity coming from this house.
It's coming from inside the house.
And like I said before the commercial break, many of them are attributed to the slaves that happened here that Miss LaLaurie kept on the property.
Mm.
The room that in the LaLaurie mansion where the slaves were often kept, and reports of moaning coming from that room are common. Phantom footsteps echo through the house with...
Stop yawning.
I'm sorry.
This is nothing to yawn about.
I know, I'm sorry. With regularity, and many people have stood near the house have reported feeling as if they were taken over by negative energies.
Yes, and this house now, they actually do tours in it. Like, they've kind of converted it into like a little touristy, so come in and witness the horrors for yourself, which I'm like, ooh, okay, but also eh. I mean, I love me some dark tourism, but sometimes some things are just too dark, you know?
This is one of those things that has a very dark history that I don't really know if I would want to be there, or even
I kind of feel like this should be lost to the ages, but also the victim should not be forgotten. So it's important to realize the history and understand what happened, but it's also important to not idealize or romanticize it in any way, because again, this woman is absolute garbage. Garbage. Garbitch. You're right. Anyway, continue, Alison.
That's definitely not how you spell garbage.
Oh, well. I'll do better next time.
So, one of the known spirits is known as the dark entity within.
Ooh.
And despite all the ghost stories, paranormal happenings at this house, it would be foolish to assume that all of them can be traced back to Madame LaLaurie and her mistreatment of slaves. In 1894, a tenant who lived at the LaLaurie mansion, which was later converted into apartments, was brutally murdered in his room. They found his belongings ransacked as if someone had gone through them. The police assumed that he was a victim of a robbery, even though nothing of value was found. An interesting account regarding this murder deals with the police interviewing neighbors about his disappearance. One of his friends claimed that he was having problems with sprites in his house,
which is a type of spirit.
Yikes.
So sprites back then are kind of associated with the fae realm and fae, so more mischievous, causing problems, tricksters, pranks, and often can be sneaky little creatures.
Oh.
So he had a problem with sprites.
And then his friend had also wrote it off as he was imagining running wild with them.
Interesting.
But he did say something interesting, He claimed that his friend had told him that there was a demon in the house who wasn't going to rest until he had met his end, which the man did in this house. Is it possible that at least some of the ghostly phenomena could be a result of this brutal murder?
Interesting. So it was a murder before any of this even actually happened.
Yes.
Wild.
However, nobody will know exactly what happened until a real paranormal investigation team came in to investigate this location. Only then, by communicating with the dead who still reside here, can hope that it can get to the bottom line. And then, of course, during the years that it was a all-girls school.
Which is, like, why would you turn it into an all-girls school? Like, a bunch of people were murdered here. There was a murder that happened back in the day. There was...
Yeah.
This was literally used as a torture house. But you know what? Let's just use it as a girls' school. An all-girls school. Yeah, totally.
Who cares, right?
Totally fine.
It's cool. And it's just... They'll be screaming like a bunch of little girls.
I know.
Oh,
it's
wait.
Wait.
They are.
They are
wait.
literally like, let me just take some people and let them get spooked.
Right?
Oh no, Allison, this is your theory. You take the kids and you lock them in the haunted place. That's this is what you waited
I'm telling you, it's a thing. It gives you
now.
the best results.
Wow,
Okay, definitely not, but hey, that's why it's a theory.
This is Allison's theory coming to fruition. Well, tell us what happened.
So, of course, a very brief time. It was a
Very
school
brief.
during the mid to late 19th century. At first, it had been one of the few mixed schools in the city of New Orleans, but politics during the Reconstruction era were
Convoluted.
Ooh,
can that be the word of the week? That's
Sure.
a good word. Convoluted.
I don't even know what that is. That's a whole big word.
It means confusing. They were like, yeah, we can have mixed schools, but no, because that's sporting, and you know how people feel about things and politics, and
Yikes.
yeah.
Yikes.
Anyway, I'll put that as word of the week. Check out our Instagram for more. That's _poltergals. Check us out.
Yikes.
You like the little promo I added
I
in there?
did,
Oh,
but
okay.
yikes. But of course, they kept it as a strictly all-girls, African-American, primarily, school.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
That's so sad.
Of all the things to choose, especially with this history,
Yeah.
why that group?
Demographic. Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds terrible.
No. And I'm sorry, that demographic has faced the most hardships in American history.
And adversity, and they're like, again, let's just shove a bunch of underage girls,
Like,
African-American girls, in a house that was used as a torture chamber. There you go.
like,
Go learn some things,
that's
kids.
so stupid.
That's smart.
That's so stupid.
Whoever did that, I mean, I want to talk to you.
I mean, I'm assuming
Probably did.
I was assuming
is
by
good.
now they're dead, which is
Good.
probably what they deserved, but
I'm going to have a seance ceremony just to have some words. If I was on that school board.
right? Well, in a few short months, reports of physical assaults came to light. We know that a lot of these young girls were approached by teachers, which then would, with tears streaking down their face, with their sleeves rolled up, the exposed flesh on their forearms were scratched and bruised.
It was the girls that were crying, not the teachers,
Yes,
just to
the
clarify.
girls. Yes.
I mean, I'm sure the teachers probably cried a little bit too, but it was mainly the girls that
Yes,
were
it was
being afflicted.
the girls. And when teachers did demand who did this, many of them answered at the same time that it would be that woman.
Ooh, that woman.
But these girls were too young to probably know that it was, of course, Madame LaLaurie.
Mm-hmm.
And the devastating tragedy some decades earlier. Moreover, it was unlikely that the teachers themselves would tell 6, 7, or 8-year-olds about the starvation and immortal torture of the slaves some decades before.
Of course. Please don't tell children this.
Yes. So it made a lot of people wonder if the young girls were playing pranks on each other, or if the
Or like
claims...
if they didn't know, or...
Yeah, or if the claims were actual true, or however many of them actually knew what happened.
Yeah.
And so then it begs another question of, was this really Madame LaLaurie torturing these young girls because of their skin color, pretty much.
Yeah.
And, of course, like we talk about, a lot of spirits don't know that times have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So if her spirit's there, she probably didn't know, but still, that sucks. Like, again, why choose that demographic to shove in a house that you know that happened in?
Yeah.
But, and then a medium to read the house. Although not everyone believes in psychics or mediums, there's one in particular incident known to the Ghost City Tours team, which, by the way, they have a lot of good information. So if you're interested in looking like a website up, these people do post a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Which someone on one of their teams happened to be a medium.
Ooh.
And throughout the entire night, she had sensed things about various locations before the tour guide even told the story. Ooh. Within the first sight of the LaLaurie mansion, the medium sucked in a deep breath and said, "Such sadness," as she rocked back on her heels, pulling out her phone, and she proceeded to snap a picture of the mansion. "The bricked up window," she went on. That's not where the little girl fell out of."
Ooh, that gave me goosebumps.
Yes.
Look at that. Look at my hair. I don't know if you guys can see in the light.
So then the tour guide paused, simply because she hadn't gotten to the part of the story about the little girl at all. Nevertheless, she recovered and said, "No, you're right. The story goes that Leah fell into the courtyard. As for the bricked up window, I suspect that someone did some interior decorating, but wanted to maintain the symmetry on the outside of the house."
Interesting.
In the next few minutes, the medium experienced such heavy emotion, like the weight had settled down on her shoulders. She sensed the spirit of a young boy who liked to play pranks on the living, and the spirit of the little girl who was often nervous. Did she feel any of the helplessness or anger? The tour guide asked. No, then the medium responded with a no. Whatever happened then with LaLaurie does not visit the house any longer.
Oh.
So then a lot of them started to ask if it was true, and have the spirits of the slaves who were once nearly starved to death in the house moved on? And if that's the case, who is responsible for all the reported hauntings at this house? And then, of course, the ghostly happenings on another tour guide, of course.
Yeah.
One of the guides was lucky enough to experience something at the haunted house on this Royal Street. I
like in the parentheses it says, "Lucky, of course, is a term to be used loosely here."
Yes. Yes. So, on one occurrence, the tour guide was giving, of course, the ghost tour of the house.
Who knew?
And they were at this mansion standing just directly across from the front door. To the right, another group was discussing the tragedies of the LaLaurie, some 50 feet away. But there, under the quiet moonlight, the story of a 1834 was slowly unveiled. All of a sudden, our guide felt a tug on her messenger bag, draped over her shoulder. She stopped amid her story, twisted to look over her shoulder, convinced that she might find a pickpocket or someone intending to steal her things.
Which happens a lot in the French Corner in downtown New Orleans, which is just sad. But it does happen a lot. So,
but the thing is that if she looked over her shoulder, were we there?
Don't look over your shoulders. It's us. The Poltergals. She did it on time this time. Yay.
So, she stopped in the middle, and then it is said that right in the middle of a tour, she exclaimed that she regaled us the story, like she retold it. No one was there, however, so she turned back around and got back onto character. No less than 10 seconds later, she felt the tug again, but this time harder and with a much sharper yank. Oof. Once again, she whipped around, but still found no one. This time, she told her tour what had happened, and their faces, she said, were priceless. No doubt hers was too. 2 weeks later, at the corner of Governor Nichols and Royal Street, our guide was out on the streets again, bringing another tour around. the LaLaurie mansion of burnt out for weeks. She launched into the story, but the minute she said the name, Leia, the lamps flickered on.
Wow.
Everyone in the group then paused, a few yelping in delight. The guide went on with the show. When she said the name Leia again, those same lamps blew out, and then the light was gone.
Oof, I got a little goosey bumps again. Look at that.
Yeah, which is crazy. And of course, if you haven't been able to tell, they do ghost tours.
Oh, yeah.
In my research, they did a few different ones.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's interesting because this actually, I told you in the East Terrence, when I went to that, that same thing happened. When any time that the housekeeper would mention the missus, the lights would turn on, and the same thing here. Whenever they mention Leah, the lights turned on.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
That's scary. Yeah, when we went to New Orleans, so we didn't do the LaLaurie tour.
How dare you?
I'm sorry, but we did the cemeteries tour. So we did the cemetery tour. So I have a lot of pictures from us like doing the cemetery tour. We also went to the Katrina Monument. So there was some really weird vibes. With the cemetery tour, they gave us like divining rods so we could go out and like do the divining rods. They gave us EMF readers. It was kind of scary. I mean, it was kind of weird because like at one point, I'm sure it was probably staged, but we were like pulling up on the buses to this gravesite, and the guy's talking about like, oh, you know, there's grave robbers out here that come out here just to grave rob. So we're like pulling up on the bus, and you just like see a guy. I didn't see this. My sister-in-law did. She said she saw a guy like walking or like running through the cemetery to the back. Like, as our bus was pulling up. Which, again, I think might have been staged. But, you know, you never know.
I mean, if you are trying to rob a grave and then you see just a busload of tourists
full of.
Yeah, I think I would run too, but...
and then us doing a photo shoot in the graveyard.
Yeah.
I would have also ran if a bus full of people showed up.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe it's just someone having fun out there, you know.
You never know.
But yeah, and then of course that one cemetery is blocked off. And then they have the Masonic cemetery there, which is one that we have. So I have some pictures from there. And I'll share all these pictures on our Instagram, or I might make a reel or something showing it off. I wish I had some videos from there, or else I would post a video. But yeah. Anyway, so that was my experience in New Orleans. It wasn't really spooky. We did go to the LaLaurie like apothecary house or whatever.
Ooh.
That's right on Bourbon Street, you know.
Ooh.
I got a really cool little butterfly necklace with like a pressed butterfly inside of it, or butterfly wings. Anyway, well, that's all for this episode. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of The Poltergals.
That's us.
That's us. Don't forget to check us out at _Poltergals. That's on Instagram. We're on Facebook at The Poltergals, no space, no underscore. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon.
YouTube.
Patreon.com/polterpals and join us and be a polter pal. But yeah, that's all for this episode. Allison.
Hi.
Bye. You're supposed to say bye.
Hi.
Hi.
Just kidding. Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to The Poltergals,
a Rogue Media Network podcast.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.